Okay, we're back rolling here. I've moved the cameras to get more of a close-up view of Charlie's hands. Um, you know, we all have our favorite catchy Scruggs-style licks or whatever it is, and if you're like me, licks that are really appealing to you stay that way for maybe 6 months or a year until you play them to death, and then something new comes into the picture, and we've all heard players do that. If you listen to Earl's uh, recordings and playings over the years, he'll go through a phase where he favors certain licks and then they sort of disappear and new ones come and take their place, right? Is there anything that you really, always had stand out in your mind that Earl did, or that Earl's licks that really make an impression, and you tend to go back to them if you can, and so on and so forth?
Would you be talking as an instrumentally or
Either as backup or lead.
backup?
Yeah, backup, I suppose there's more variation. There's a lot more things.
Well, a lot of people don't take into account that Earl did a lot of single string picking.
Okay, well let's start with that, and go ahead, in your words, tell me about.
Well, there seems to be this identity that's associated with Don Reno as this single string picker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's very true on the whole. But Earl Scruggs was very much a single string picker.
Yeah,
too.
he did not do chromatic licks or melodic licks,
Right.
but the single string, he knew where the music was.
Right,
Yeah.
he would do that. I've studied every video I can to my fullest extent. And then when I think that's over with, and I'll watch it again, I'll see
There's something new.
I'll see something different, or I'll hear, as we talked earlier about listening to the Foggy Mountain Banjo record, all of these years for me, and occasionally when I'm listening to it, I'll hear something I've never heard before.
Yeah.
Be it an interplay between instruments that will trigger a different angle to listen from. Certainly the vocabulary on that record, and a lot of his records, as you say, periodically he would go through these things where he played these licks that were in his mind, and he asserted them to, or inserted them to everything, asserted, whatever you want to call it.
Where they could be used or fit or utilized, or yeah.
Right, the Cabin and Caroline lick, the thing I think he got from Snuffy Jenkins.
That came from Snuffy, really?
I've heard a recording or two of Snuffy, maybe not doing it verbatim as that, but I think anything Snuffy did that Earl liked, Earl just made it more palatable musically.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the subject of single string licks, if you're going to play lengthy single string licks, do you tend to favor thumb index, thumb index, thumb index to get them, or do you use rapid strokes of the same finger in a row?
It depends on tempo.
Good answer. Yep.
Yeah, because one of the tunes we do in our show is the Big Black Train.
Yep.
Where you come down here.
Okay, so you're going thumb index
So
on that.
when you're going 140 beats a minute, you can't go. Or I can't.
Yeah, we've
Maybe
seen
he
Earl.
could.
We've seen him do it pretty fast. But
Yeah.
again, you lose your power on that.
But
So.
that's right. I mean, it's off balance. And the thumb, as we know, is the dominant force in terms of torque with our hand. That's the one that we can control, and the one that's got that has the power. So at that particular tune that's at enough tempo and playing just lightning fast single string notes, for my accuracy, I have to use the thumb in the middle.
Thumb and middle. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how about if
you can do either one, and I'm sure I've done it both ways.
How about if you're on the inside strings? Then you're going to use thumb and index, I would guess, right? If you're playing any kind of Reno licks or something on the inside strings.
Well, and again, it depends on the tempo, and it also depends on the lick. A lot of things that appear in Don's playing to be thumb or actually thumb and index, thumb down, index up.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
You know, to get something of that nature, which is not Scruggs at all. But Scruggs was on those videos. I don't really pay any attention to his right hand.
It's all in the left hand.
It's in the left hand's what I'm watching, because as you know, you can make that note in all these different places, and you play out of these 3 chord forms. Have you got the what would I call this? The underground promo tape of Flat and Scruggs doing Just Joshin' and 9 Pound Hammer and all that stuff, Pearl, the stuff that supposedly came out of WSM that has the time signature bar on the bottom.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go to that tape and watch Earl. Watch what he does behind Josh Graves' break on 9 Pound Hammer. And I'm going to show you what he
Okay,
does.
let's see it.
And
Yeah.
this blew my mind when I saw it. Alright, so you got to imagine the dobro playing and Earl's just playing right along behind it. And I won't play it quite to the speed that they play it, but close to what he did behind Josh Graves, which is watch him do that, and that will it'll broaden your appreciation for his knowledge of the neck.
Yeah, there's when you start watching a player play that, it brings back to my mind the initial roll with the pinky and the other finger reaching up of something like from let's say Farewell Blues. But then there's another recording, and again I'm going to sound like I'm fumbling. I can clean this up on the video here myself to make it more professional. But there's a fiddle tune on some of the Shanachi DVDs, where he's doing all that kind of stuff. I think it's oh man, I want to say that it's North Carolina Breakdown, not the one that I've been hunting for where he plays the lead break, but he's doing all kinds of stuff like that where he's barring with his index finger and using the other fingers to bend and choke and everything else, and throw all these little attention-getting licks in there. And
he'll play majors up against a minor, stuff like that. I think that was him just having fun, and
yeah, he knew where the notes were. And
this is casual, and you know, this is what I feel like right now, which is all any of us can do.
Yeah. Now on the subject of chords, which again is, you were demonstrating some backup right there, and I've seen you do this on some of the YouTube videos. Show us up close how Earl would let's say hold a chord to vamp and drag his fingers across. Instead of just a straight thumb pinch, he would drag his fingers, or rake his fingers across the strings to get them all in. You know what I'm referring to right there?
Oh yeah. Maybe not that exaggerated, but yeah, he done a lot of things that were a bit unorthodox to tie everything together. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what a great musician does, is they don't pick up an instrument and try to play. They pick up an instrument and they play it. That's what Earl Scruggs did.
Now in that example that you were doing there, you were brushing down with your thumb, and I'm familiar with the licks that you were playing there in some of the cases. Now, what about if you were to just hold a chord, let's say at this 10th fret C or 5th fret G or whatever, and you're just doing some simple vamping. Instead of going thumb, pinch, thumb, pinch, thumb, pinch, I've seen you take your middle and index and rake upwards instead of a, in other words, thumb, 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 you know,
Yeah.
okay? Where did you, yeah, that kind of stuff. Where did that get inspired into you from? Where did you first hear,
Well,
see, or... Earl talks about that very briefly in his book, and he talks about, he uses the term something like letting the fingers come off of one string and brush onto the others. And again, that's one of those lost techniques that a lot of people haven't.
Well, I've learned since these videos have come out that to watch the videos and to follow visually what he's doing, it greatly enhances my hearing.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another buddy of mine, we were just talking the other day, he has just ran himself a copy of all of the videos, audio only.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's trying to take a step over and look through a different portal,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to see now what he can hear solely audio-wise.
Yeah, which is affecting a different part of your mind,
Right,
the brain, and so on.
It's
Yep.
changing gears up here. And anyway, what I have seen on the videos that I've certainly I guess you'd say altered my past conditioning from that day before the videos came out,
Mm-hmm.
or before I saw them, when I would try to envision what I heard in a way that he may have been doing it. And the videos have just proved to be just priceless in watching his entire technique.
Yes.
Instead of just listening to it,
Mm-hmm.
to actually watch it and to see how dexterous he is, coming up here and reaching down there and grabbing that, and
okay, well,
he probably knocked his banjo out of 10 a time or two, I would imagine. But
well, let me put you on the spot with that. I've noticed that you have, in some of the recordings I've heard of you and some of the videos I've seen of you, you're fond of playing a lot of passing tones between chords, up and down the neck and so on and so forth. And you know, Earl did his share of that and whatever. And the little ditty that you just played right there, you moved up and down between them. Could I impose on you to just simply move around on the neck, if you want to just 3 chords, G, C, and D or whatever, do some things that are, let's say, inspired by Earl, and just stretch out on it in your own mind. If you can do that in the course of solo work without the benefit of a band, you know, working the music with you, just pick a little bit and let's just hear and watch what you might do for...
could you give me a song to play?
What's
you could hear me doing that on, or hear Earl doing it on, and I'll try to...
I mean, it can be something like if I try to tap into some of the videos that are on YouTube of you over at Ronnie Bale's house, you do things like Sunny Side of the Mountain, maybe what is it, Blue Ridge Cabin Home, you know, some of the standards that just might work people through, you know, 3 chords that can be used in 100 different songs. So these kind of things will, Blue Ridge Mountain Blues, and Cabin in Caroline, yeah, yep.
Well, let's just imagine that we're playing Cabin in Caroline.
Okay.
And there's a... I'll just play it through a couple of times, and we'll imagine that the first time I play it through is there's a vocal going on.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Okay, and
yep.
then I'll play the chorus where there's still vocal going on, and then we'll imagine that there's a fiddle break going on, and then I'll play through that, and then I'll stop.
Yeah, okay. Beautiful. That right there contains so much information that if one were to just digest those three verses, or you know, the verses and the choruses that you just played right there, you could take that and utilize it for years in different settings.
Yeah, it's just it's like you say, it's a certain amount of that is passing chords. It's a certain amount of it is passing tones. The passing tones is really another thing Scruggs was master at. Is that he didn't step on, he didn't take your attention away from the singing, or take your attention away from the guy taking the solo. He contributed to that in a complementary, just a way that, I mean, he came up with this stuff.
And that's
just a great musician.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that people aren't really studying a lot of. At least that's my opinion. You don't hear other players trying to play that way. They just don't, for whatever reasons. And I'm a little mystified of that, because he was the master musician at doing those backup runs, using the chords, using the tones, using the licks inside there. If I can, while that camera is still rolling, I can either I wanted to play one lick myself and ask your comment about it. I can either grab that, or can I just grab this banjo that's back over here?
Sure, yeah.
You go ahead and just sit there where you were, and you'll know what I'm talking about. On Earl's slow backup, he used to do this. He would play. He would get that kind of loping sound on slow tunes like Just Ain't, or You Put Me on My Feet, or whatever. He would go thumb, pinch, pinch, thumb, thumb, pinch, pinch with the two fingers. And if you get that working right,
absolutely. Yep.
A lot of people are unfamiliar with that particular lick. If you know what I'm talking about right there, and you know, I've heard that on the recordings for years, and it occurs only once. Yeah. Using the thumb twice in a row to get. There's a version on the videos where he's backing up Maybell on the guitar, or no, he's backing up Maybell playing something like Liberty or something on the auto harp, and he's playing banjo behind it. And the way the camera angle is, you can see his right hand, and that's the only time I've ever seen him doing that where the camera is actually on it, because it annoys me that the minute the other instruments play, they get him out of the view, and so all that fancy elaborate backup that you were just demonstrating there a moment ago is always off camera in those videos. Right. And how I wish, if I was the producer of those, I would have had him in the view, even if it was in a back corner, so that you could see what he was doing. And
or the little sub screen in the bottom.
Yes,
picture.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stories that they purposely did that so that people wouldn't be able to see what he was doing. Have you ever heard those stories or
I've only
theories?
imagined that.
Yeah. Okay, how about this? I'll rattle off some fast questions here. If you need to play fast and you're not warmed up, what's the trick to that? Is it to play softly or play simply?
That's a really good question. Up to this point, because I have played so much, it's my 50th year playing, and up to this point, hopefully it'll be past this point, I've had an uncanny ability to take it right out of the case, go hit the stage, and be pretty accurate. You know. I guess that's just within one's ability.
Okay.
I've played a lot. Now I worked 12 years in a theme park, doing anywhere from 3 to 6 shows a day, 6 days a week.
So those muscles and so on are geared for action.
They have been. Now I don't play as much as I used to, but in my history, I have played a and I've played a lot under the gun, as the phrase goes, to where you got to produce. You can't get up there and not be noticed.
Okay, yeah.
You know, because you're a part of a band, and you have to contribute and do your thing.
Yep.
And the pressure's on you, and it's almost like one of those things that you along the way, when it's going on in that period, you don't really want to think about it. You just want to say, okay, I got to get the banjo around my neck. I've got to go. I've got to work.
Okay.
I've got to produce. I've got to be active.
Okay. Well, let's say that you're giving advice to a picker who doesn't have that quite of a stance. He's struggling. He's got some limitations. He needs warm up and so on. What would you say to him if he's trying to do something? If he's got to produce and it's a little bit beyond where he's at on that particular day, hour, moment, and so on, how would you advise someone like that to handle themselves?
Well, there's a certain amount of preparedness that we have to have all the time. On the way to the gig, between the gigs, over to the next gig, and that is to know what you're doing. It's what I just mentioned about working in a theme park for all those years. The 5 years that I first worked in that park, it's like memorizing a script. You know you're going to play Rocky Top. You know you're going to play Orange Blossom Special. You know you're going to play Foggy Mountain Breakdown. You know you're going to play Will the Circle Be Unbroken. Okay, that's 4 songs right there in a 30-minute set. You only have about maybe 3 other songs and some chatter. Anyway, if you can, I always believe that you can know what you're going to do.
Okay.
And rather than getting on stage and having a creative festival with yourself, get up there. What I did, I honed my technique, because I never have played anything that I thought was as good as it could be.
Oh, really?
Ever.
Okay. Hang on before we run out of video space on this one. Okay. So we were just talking about playing fast versus playing slow, and like you were saying, know what you're doing, be prepared, and so on, and kind of follow the script, and it will come back to you easier and easier. I've noticed that different players tend to play too loud on a banjo, which I think is probably, I mean, if you're trying to play on stage without any sound equipment, there's a reason for doing that. But how loud should a person play? Is there a point of diminishing return? You know, all the jokes about, you know, the banjo being too loud or whatever may be.
Yeah.
The more that you try to get volume, I suppose you suffer in other areas. You lose tone, you lose coordination, you lose speed. What's your thought about that? Is there an optimum that you like? Do you find that you have a different method for sitting in a living room and playing versus playing on stage or in the studio? What's your thoughts about loud, soft, or indifferent?
Yeah, it really gets over to who's playing along with you. If you're part of a band that is working up a show to do songs and MC work and stuff, it's a matter of courtesy, really. Some of the old timers called it professional courtesy.
So would you say that the trick is to play only as loud as you need to be heard and not overdo it at that point?
Well, it's this is something that I'm not sure where this was disclosed, but either in an interview or a book or something. But Earl Scruggs, he had this concept visualized as a format to play in with these instruments, banjos, fiddles, and good country heart songs and stuff. He had this vision of taking this down home front porch living room music, putting it on a stage, and playing it in a professional manner. I even believe that he instilled that in Bill Monroe's band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he and Lester must have agreed on this. But now I think in Josh's one of his interviews, or possibly his book, he talks about his playing the dobro and Earl's guidance on that. And he tells Josh, he says, you know, the first time through, he said, play the melody, establish what you're doing, so John Doe can say, yeah, he's playing that song.
Yeah, he's playing 9-Pound Hammer or whatever.
That's the song he's playing. And he said, maybe the second time you do it, he said, stretch out a little bit, change it up a little bit, spice it up. You know, but I know Josh said that. I can't remember. It was possibly in his in his Bluesman book that came out.
Yeah. Speaking of let's say your own personal experience, if you're hearing a song for the first time that you've never played before, how long does it take before you've got a good break in your mind that you can execute? Do you like to go through it a few times to see what you can come up with, or is it all right there once you hear the music the first time?
No, I'm not what I would call a quick study.
Okay.
Now some players are, and that's another tremendous gift to have, to be able to hear something played through and someone say, okay, now let's do it again, and to have your act together and to play it as near flawless as you can.
Yeah.
Even to just retain it. You know, if it's something intricate. But no, I'll do a few banjo sessions from time to time, and I have throughout the years. It seems like years ago, the clock on the wall was what you were working with and you were working against.
Yeah.
Not only individual-wise, but the whole gang doing the session. You're trying to get in there and cut as many songs in a 3-hour session. For John Smith, who's come to Nashville to be a singer, you're trying to do him, give him his most money's worth, and you're trying to accomplish as much as you can against the clock. It really depends on the situation.
Okay.
It really does.
How about backup? How do you organize backup with the band? Do you guys get together and have certain rules that, like, okay, you'll play low on the neck behind a fiddle break and vamp behind the guitar break, or is there a certain
about the Earls?
Yeah.
Well, basically what we do is we've done our second album last year. We rehearse. We do whatever study individually as we see necessary to be able to bring our part to the table.
So it's kind of a group effort, would you say? Which
the way that works in this band, we get our stuff together, and this has never been discussed. This is just really good caliber players playing together who are responsible and have the ability to get these puzzle pieces to the table, so to say. We get all that stuff to the table. We play through it a few times. We critique it, we analyze it, possibly even just silently. And me saying to myself, I need to, when so-and-so's doing this, I need to be doing that instead of what I did the first time.
Yeah.
And so we get a mindset individually. We go into the studio, we record this stuff live, and here's how we do it. We listen to our recording. That way we know who's playing backup when Jerry's doing a solo.
Yep.
And we get it right in the studio, and get it worked out just before we record it, make the record. The record comes out, we start listening to the record, and then we get on stage, and somehow we sound like the record.
Okay, so it works.
Because it's natural.
Yeah.
That's a natural way to do it.
How much practice do you do by yourself nowadays, or none at all because you're busy with the band?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been playing, this year's 50 years. The thing to me that's the hardest to keep and to find is inspiration. Okay, because you've played all these tunes so many times, and you've played other tunes that have the same phrases in them and stuff, and so I have lately found my inspiration through this old banjo right here that I've had now for about a year.
And tell us about that banjo then.
This is a flathead Gibson Granada with a Frank Neat neck on it. It's essentially the same banjo that Earl played. Of course, his parts were changed to nickel parts.
Yep.
His neck was changed later on from a curly maple to a mahogany neck, which gives it a little bit different tone. But anyway, I had the opportunity to meet this banjo. When I did, I really liked it, and Curtis McPeak is the guy that I got the banjo from. He worked with me on a timeline to where I could liquidate some of my banjos in my collection and do some trading and stuff, and wind up with this banjo. A Granada is a whole different banjo than a Style 3 or a Style 4. It has its own sound, and you've probably heard Earl say before, when you say Granadas, they've got a sound all their own, and they really do. He knew that. He knew it early on when he traded with Don. He could hear something in Don's banjo, which was the Granada at the time. He could hear something in there that he really liked. Speaking
of that banjo and Don's other banjo, when did the term change? Somewhere along the line you started calling the RB3 a 75. Am I right about that?
Well, I'll tell you how that goes. Curtis McPeak and I were talking about this not long ago. Curtis said, you know, back in the old days, the 50s and the 60s, he said, we didn't call these banjos 3s and 4s or Granadas. He said, we called them old master tones. He said, that's what they were. And I found that very, very interesting to know that. But you know, as things evolve and we're able to research now in ways that we haven't been able to before, through records, company records, transaction records, things that these people have researched to the hilt. We've kind of reconstructed the Gibson catalog as it evolved. And what happened, the deal on the 3s and 4s and the 75s, when Don Reno was playing this banjo and Earl was playing it, they bought Earl bought the banjo used from a guy named Hayes Hall up in Virginia. And so now what we know about the factory order number on that banjo, when that banjo was assembled and the number put in the banjo, at that point Gibson, just before that, had relabeled the Style 3, which Style 3 was a mahogany nickel-plated banjo that sold for $100. Okay, in their catalogs they dropped the price to $25. Now, to let everybody know that, they renamed the banjo the Style 75.
Gotcha.
And a lot of their models, guitars, mandolins, and banjos were designated by numbers like The J35 guitar was $35. The J45 was $45, so on and so forth. And so that followed suit in the banjos too. Well, we didn't really know this back when Don Reno was alive, and he passed in 1984.
Right.
Been a lot of things uncovered since then, as far as the chronological evolution of Gibson's catalog and what they were calling it at the time. So anyway, technically, even though Earl and some of the older guys, Don Reno, Crow, Sonny, they called us Don's banjo a 3 because that's what it was to them. Okay, now we know that somewhere around 1936, that designation by Gibson that was a 3, the lowered price is now called a 75.
Gotcha.
Okay, so technically, by the book, that banjo at the time it was produced would have been an RB75.
Makes sense.
Okay, and that's how that goes.
That's the story. Gotcha.
That's how it is, and you can call it what you want. I've had the banjo in my shop a couple of different times. In fact, I kept that banjo for over a year one time while Don Wayne was touring overseas. He asked me to babysit it for him. And I've done some measurements on the resonator. And that banjo's resonator makes it very unique. It's that banjo has the lining on the inside of the resonator, which typically would have been poplar wood, which is a very porous grain wood. The resonator on Don's banjo is maple. It's a very tight grain maple, and so it has the sound jumps out of it very quickly, which suited his rapid style that he had, you know, and complicated style. It brought out all those little nuances and things. And anyway, that's my spin on the 75 versus the 3 thing. Call it what you want.
Gotcha. One last question about picking there. Do you do any kind of melodic picking at all, or is it mostly Scruggs and single string? Is there anything that you've dabbled in?
Yeah, I really like melodic playing.
Do you?
I never have been really good at it. For the simple reason that I don't like to be in a box that much. You know,
you have to play the notes a certain way, and it's very difficult to change it on the fly, right?
It is. It is. But I do several tunes that are kind of a mixture of the 3. You know.
Wow.
That's an old fiddle tune.
What was it called?
Whistling Rufus.
Okay.
Of course, he played up to speed. I'll play some stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's
You got your Keith tuners on here too.
Yeah, I see what you're doing there. Try playing either the train that carried my girl from town or Ain't Gonna Work Tomorrow in G. In other words, start it right here. Yeah, and then you got it. Yep. See how that works? It's tricky to tune the low string. It sounds great out here,
crazy,
really.
Man.
And of course, you play guitar, so that gives you an instinctive advantage. Yeah.
Let's see. Some fun with that.
I bet you could, yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool. It's really slinky.
I probably did a number on the strings last night at the Station Inn. Like I said, it's survival of the fittest over there, you know?
Yeah.
So see, you can dazzle people and play all those tunes that, you know, otherwise are in C or D. You can play them in G.
Yeah. Shit. Take a while to get used to that.
Yeah. You got to put your fingers in a pencil sharpener and I'm still tweaking it, you know. I'm over the next year or something. I'm sure I'll adjust the action and
Yeah.
you know, the string choice and whatever.
Wow. Don't want to play it too much. much, won't be able to play the other one.
You know, you're probably right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I remember the horror stories Sonny Osborne telling about
Uh-huh.
playing this thing for a couple of years. Seemed like to kill him. You know, when he went back.
Yeah.
To
Yeah. Uh-huh.
those little teeny little strings, you know.
Yeah, teeny little neck and everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Very interesting.
Okay, well, now you know where there's one if you ever need it again, you know.